and welcome to the 8th episode of Mixed Media Reviews Season 4. My name is Kelsey, and today I'm going to be talking about a TV show. This week's TV show is True Blood. First up, sorry about the not-so-consistent schedule as of late. The weekends have been surprisingly busy for me, and I've just been exhausted from work, which has also been crazy busy. So when I get a moment, I tend to kind of veg out instead of doing anything. And also, I did read and listen to 8 books in February, and I've read another 4 in March so far, and today's the 11th. So I've been quite busy. And that doesn't include that I'm now listening to the audiobook versions of Fourth Wing, which I've already finished, and Iron Flame, which I'm currently on, and both of which I read last month in less than a week each. So I've been consumed by books lately, so I haven't really wanted to do much else except for listen or read. And yes, that episode of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame is definitely going to be coming. But yeah, so sorry about that. Sorry about the schedule. I have requested a little time off coming up at the end of the month, just a couple 3-day weekends to help get rid of some PTO that I've been accumulating. So maybe I'll finally get caught up in my life and with the podcast. So yeah. True Blood. I watched this show forever ago when it was first coming out, and then I just did a rewatch of it, which again, I did a rewatch of this. I rewatched all of Gilmore Girls. I did a rewatch already, actually, of Instant Star. I finished a couple days ago, even though I started not too long before that. Anyway, so yeah, if for some reason reading ACOTAR really made me want to rewatch the show. I had been itching for it for a while, and finally I was like, I'm pretty sure it's on the HBO Max, so I did it. I dove in. There are also books first by Charlaine Harris. I never read them. I think my best friend did, or she started to when the TV show was coming out, but I don't know how far she got and if she even liked them. I'm also warned that this is going to be a crazy spoiler-heavy episode, so please be warned. Oh boy, so what isn't this show about? Let's see what Google says this show is about then. A small-town Louisiana waitress, Sookie Stackhouse, already is viewed as an oddball by her friends and neighbors, since she can read the minds of those around her. She doesn't exactly help her reputation, though, when she falls for Bill Compton, a 173-year-old vampire who has come out of the coffin, along with many of his undead comrades. This is a weird summary. Anyway, now that a new synthetic blood has made it possible for vampires to survive without preying on humans. Still, the conservative locals aren't wild about the mortal vampire liaisons, especially Sookie's boss, Sam Merlot, who carries a torch for her. This is such a weird summary, Google. But you know what? That about sums it up. So yeah, let's just dive in, because I guess that's all you need to know. So what did I like about this show? 2 words: Eric Northman, and that's it. I'm kidding, kind of. I also really love Terry. But let's go back to Eric. Okay, so first up, he's the absolute best part of this entire show. He's hilarious. He's, obviously a handsome fella. He is just great. I loved him. And he made every single storyline that he was in that much better. If Eric wasn't part of the story, it was kind of like, what's even the point of this show, I mean, yes, Alexander Skarsgård is obviously a very handsome fella, but Eric was just the perfect character. And he was so perfect for Sookie. Like, obviously he's a vampire, so he's a bit evil, and we kind of ignore the parts where he was a jerk and, also tortured poor Lafayette, who is my 3rd favorite character after Terry, because he's a vampire. So of course he's going to do some shady stuff. I think it's kind of like an Angel/Spike situation. Bill is obviously Angel and Eric is obviously Spike. So Angel Bill was, kind of goodish before finding Buffy Sookie. He was already trying to do the right thing, and therefore his mess-ups were kind of bigger in a way. They contrasted more heavily against his goodness. And of course, when he went evil, right? Angel lost his soul, murdered a ton of people, just went crazy. And of course, Bill turns into Lilith God or something, who isn't quite evil, but is capable of some horrific things, right? And he also goes a little crazy before that, even. So that's that. Then there's Spike Eric, who tries to do the right thing because of his love for Buffy Sookie. And yes, he still does some awful things, terrible things even, and even sometimes hurts Buffy Sookie. But he's trying so hard, and for her, protecting her is easy. And we all know Spike is the right choice. And okay, yes, that bathroom scene was horrible. And I'm not saying that Buffy has to choose him after that, but he did go get his soul afterwards just so he wouldn't ever do anything that horrible again to her, because he loved her. Even as a soulless, evil thing, Spike loved Buffy. And that does not mean that Buffy has to choose Spike after that, but it does mean that Spike is the better choice of the two. But just like Eric, the little cutie, he loves Sookie so much and he doesn't know what to do with himself. And Memory Loss Eric was the cutest thing in the entire show. And I'm including the fact that we got to see a little werepuppy, okay? Because Eric was so freaking cute when he was finally free of all of his burdens and could just like bathe in his happiness and love of Sookie. And yeah, and Sookie and Eric, they just had such good chemistry. And though I'm well aware that Skarsgård could have chemistry with a plank of wood at this point, but you could see it from the first moment he laid eyes on her. Yeah, the whole thing with Sookie is kind of whether or not they're attracted to her because of her or because of what she is. So maybe that's what initially drew Eric in, but you could tell that he cared for her the moment he met her. He constantly did terrible things, but he was still protecting her while doing those terrible things. Like, you were like, what are you doing? But you could tell that he was doing something that he thought would protect her in the long run, you know, like trying to pretend like he didn't care about her in front of the other vampires. But you knew the second anyone even looked at her wrong, he would have murdered the crap out of them. And it was like only Pam, which is my fourth favorite character, and Sookie that he cared about in like the entire show. And yes, eventually his stupid little other protege thing. But it was really Pam and Sookie number one. Every single look he gave her, even when he was mad at her, was just pure love. And I am Team Eric 100%. The second thing that I loved about True Blood was Terry. I thought it was quite the contrast to go from Gilmore Girls to True Blood. Humongous tone shift when I was watching it. But then I totally forgot that Terry was played by Todd Lowe, who was Zach in Gilmore Girls. So it kind of made sense that I was going from Gilmore Girls to True Blood, and I was kind of following Todd Lowe's like journey. Which is crazy because they're such different characters and different shows, and yet it was like a span of a year that happened. He went from one show to the next, and it's crazy. But yeah, Terry was so freaking sweet. He loved Arlene since the day one, which we see, you know, later on is absolutely true. But you can tell from the first episode that, you know, he's in that he loved Arlene, and he was so freaking cute and sweet to her. And it absolutely broke my freaking heart when they killed him off. His death on the show was by far the hardest death of the entire show. And there's a lot of death, especially at the end. I was so sad. But his character was one of my favorites. Obviously the second favorite after Eric. And yeah, I loved him. I loved him so freaking much. Third favorite character is, of course, Lafayette. Who else could it be? There are plenty of people I didn't care about, you know, Sam and Tara, but I'll get into that later. But besides Pam and the previous two, Lafayette was really the only other character I cared about. Is that terrible to say? Especially since I didn't even include Sookie in this list, but genuinely, it kind of was like I only really cared about the other characters if they were connected to one of these four people. I guess I kind of maybe also like Jason, but his storylines got pretty wild. Like, I don't even know what was happening with those. I mean, so did Lafayette's, I guess, but I still loved him. So maybe we'll throw Jason in as a half measure. But Lafayette was hilarious and sassy, and he was just always there for Sookie and Tara. And he was so, I don't know, he was just so unapologetically himself, if that makes sense. He didn't really, apologize for who he was or refuse to be who he was. He just was himself. And maybe he kind of became a catch-all solution at times, especially towards the end of the show. But I still loved him because, I mean, how could you not love Lafayette? One of the best characters, hands down. And I loved him on Elementary, and he was in Veronica Mars, because who hasn't been in Veronica Mars? And he was amazing in both of those shows too. So how can you not love him? So what didn't I like about True Blood? Well, first up, what the heck? Let's just start with probably the most obvious, at least to me, is what is up with Jessica constantly dating old dudes. She's 17 when she's turned, and is turned in the show. So it's not like she's been 17 for, how many years have you been 17? Sorry, Twilight joke. It's not like she's been 17 for a million years. She's literally 17 one day and a vampire the next day, and a couple days later she meets Hoyt and they start dating. And I don't get it. Okay, maybe it's not that quick, but still. She's still 100% in human years 17 when she starts dating Hoyt, who is like 28 in the beginning of the show. Why do people think that that's okay? That's so gross. I could never. And like, I get that a lot of the time when we're watching shows, like I said, I had just rewatched Instant Star, and yes, you root for people that you realize later when you're older they should not be a couple. But it's kind of two things are happening. One is that the actors portraying the people are typically, much closer in age. So, like, it doesn't look weird. So you're not, like, actually thinking this is a literal 17-year-old and a literal 28-year-old. Because that's really weird. Although I think she was pretty young. They still looked creepily like there was a big age gap. And you could tell that there was a big age gap. But then the second thing I think is happening is that a lot of the time I've watched these things like Pretty Little Liars, Instant Star, when I was younger, and I didn't really think about the fact that the age difference is a big deal. But I'm not the one who's writing these. Like, adult human beings are writing these and thinking that this is okay, when it's 100% not okay. I could never even imagine what that would be like nowadays, and I don't understand why they think that that's something they should be including. I don't get it. Not a fan. And then, of course, how long is it later? Not too long that she starts dating Jason. So maybe she's 18 at this point, or 19. I can't remember with the time jumps. But she's still dating a dude who's 10 years older than her and should not be looking at someone that young. And it's really creepy, and I was not a fan. I was also not a fan of Sookie and Bill, which I think a lot of people are going to be upset about or against me on. But I just don't get how two people who literally get married in real life and are still together to this day, how they can lack so much chemistry on screen. I don't know if it was the acting or the accents or what, but it just felt like they didn't really have a good connection. And maybe it's because Bill was much more reserved. I don't know. But I didn't really like them together, and I didn't really care when she had to kill him. And he was like, I'm peacing out. All I cared about was that we got a cute little hug from Eric when she found out that he wasn't going to save his own life. And it was really cute. Because, again, I only really care about anything that happens when Eric is involved. But it's fine. It's fine, guys. It was also kind of annoying at how many people Sookie dated. I mean, it was pretty much guaranteed that if a dude showed up and was not human, she's gonna date him. There was Sam first, or Bill was first, and then Sam, and then Eric, though again, not at all complaining about that. Alcide, and then Ben/Warlow. Like, it was just like constant. And I know that relationships were constantly changing the show, which I will also mention later, but it was still she was one of the worst as well. Speaking of Eric and Sookie, why the heck do we only get like 2 episodes of them together? And it's when he's like got memory loss, so it's not even like his full self. Bill has entire seasons, and I'm so mad because we deserved more. Sookie and Eric deserved more. And yes, again, Eric without his memories was the best thing that this show has ever given us. But it would have been even better if we actually saw them be together, instead of waiting for stolen little moments in season 7. The last season was also, speaking of season 7, was pure chaos. They were like, let's just kill everyone. And also nothing matters. Let's just do all of it. Though I will say, sad and dejected Sookie was probably my favorite Sookie. Oh God, that's a terrible thing to say. But she finally was like speaking some real sense, you know? It was nice. And again, especially since it led her to a few hugs with Eric that were so incredibly tender and sweet that I wanted to curl up into a ball and die. That's a normal response, right? I think so. Anyway, while I did like some of the storyline of the last season, you know, taking it to the future and how like everything's going kind of crazy, it was also not even the craziest storyline because of the friggin' Werepanthers. But but the last season felt like a lot was happening just because like it was the last season, so like they didn't care anymore because they killed so many people. Right? They killed Terry, my boy Terry. Was that this season or was that 6th season? No, that was... Hold on, I'm scrolling. I'm looking. I'm pretty sure that's season 7, right? No, that was season 6. Okay, so they killed Terry in season 6. I'm still mad about it, and it's fine. It's been like a decade. Has it? No. Oh, guys, it has been a decade. Anyway, so they killed Terry the season before, but then in season 7, they killed Alcide because, you know, Sookie can't have happiness until it's off screen at the very end. They killed Bill. They killed Tara, who is, of course, not even on screen when she dies, and it looks like she's going to be fine, but then they kill her anyway, and then she's in a handful of scenes later on, so, like, what was the deal with that? They couldn't, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, so they killed a bunch of people, and I'm probably forgetting more. Oh yeah, Hoyt's mom. They killed Hoyt's mom too, just to get him back, I guess. They were just like, who cares? Let's kill everyone. Let's make some wild decisions. We'll just do some stuff, and then we'll call it a day. And that was season 7. Oh, and then let's also suddenly have Jessica and Hoyt get married, which, again, gross. But, like, suddenly he's back, still doesn't have his memories, but then kind of is told that he loves her and is like, okay, yeah, let's get married now, even though I don't even remember anything. I don't get it. I don't get it. And then also suddenly James is a different character or a different, like, actor. And then he cheats on Jessica with Lafayette. And then for some reason Lafayette gets the moral high ground by saying Jessica isn't treating him right. It was like the one time I was really mad at Lafayette. Because, like, James could just break up with her before sleeping with someone else, maybe. Maybe also James is in the wrong here because he knows it's not working, but he's staying anyway. So maybe they're both wrong, and maybe the solution isn't just sleeping with somebody else. But maybe that's just me. I really did like the splices of flashbacks that we actually got in the last season as well. But I wish we saw them more throughout. Like, I know we got them occasionally, like finding out about Bill's maker and stuff like that. And when Eric got made with his maker. But it was just like, the last season had so many of them. And it was probably because, again, they're trying to pack so much information into the last season. But I really liked finding out all the information. Like, I loved that we got to learn how Ginger actually met, like, Eric and Pam. And all the other things that, like, happened to them before that they turned up in Louisiana. And again, I know we got some flashbacks throughout the show, but I just really liked in this later season, that we got more spliced throughout the story, and it kind of helped tell the story of what was going on now. I don't know. I just liked it, and I noticed it, I guess, more in season 7. So let's talk about the ending. since we're here. I mean, wow, what an ending. I get that Sookie didn't have to pick a vampire. That's fine that she chose somebody else that we didn't really know yet, but also, is it? I mean, we see her with some random dude and she has kids and like everybody else has kids and we see them with a bunch of people. I just felt like it's kind of weird, and maybe, it's supposed to be that she's moved on and has a normal life now, which, totally fine, but she does still hang out with a bunch of non-human people. And I think it just bothered me because we see Eric and Pam somewhere else. But if they had been there, then it would have felt like, Eric was still involved. And that's all I care about. No, I feel like I just needed to see them together, even if they were just friends. Like, all of this couldn't have happened, and then they're just off living completely separate lives while everybody else that she's met is there with her. I didn't want him not in her life, And so, like, I feel like the ending just kind of bummed me out for that reason. And because we don't even get to meet the dude she's with. Like, you're going to cast I think it ended up being like a stuntman or something. But we don't even get to see who it is in the end of the show. And I feel like I have conflicting feelings. Like, maybe I would have been angry if we saw some random dude and we were like, who the frick is this? But then also, like, we don't see him except for his back. So also, who the frick is this? I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, for sure. Okay, so let's move past it. Here's some other stuff that I didn't like. I really liked El Cid when we first met him, and even at the end. I just hated him when he was Packmaster. He was so out of character. Sorry, I'm having two thoughts at once. So he was super out of character, but now I'm also thinking, like, maybe season 6 was the one that was crazy. But yeah, so like he was just so out of character. Like, I didn't understand why he was trying to kidnap the little girl. It made no sense. Like, he didn't even know her or the mother, and he killed her father. And he didn't used to care about being in a pack. And so now suddenly he feels so strongly that you should be part of a pack that he's trying to kidnap this girl from the only person she really knows, except for her grandmother, I guess. And it was just really weird. I mean, it's also weird that Sam's like, I've got to take this girl, even though, like, I get that her mother said don't let the pack raise her, but also, you barely know this little girl. So it was all really weird. And instead of just sitting down and having a conversation about what's best for this girl, everyone's just trying to kidnap her. And I hated it. Another thing that I felt like wasn't really fully fleshed out in the show was exactly how blood works, the vampire blood. I can see people kind of building up a tolerance or that it affects non-humans differently, but it seemed like one drop could make Lafayette super high, but then I'm pretty sure he had, I thought it was like Eric's blood. He had somebody's blood at some point and he was totally fine from it. And like Jason got, for sure, had like one drop and he went on a crazy, kick. He had an entire vial, and I think we all remember how that ended up for him. And then he gets Jessica's blood when he's like all messed up and like he gets, fresh from the vamp, and yet that makes him like just have dreams about her, but is totally fine. So it's confusing, and I feel like they don't always follow the same rules, but maybe that's because it affects people differently, but then they don't really say that. So I don't know. It's just, I wish we had a bit more straightforward of how it worked, and, maybe it worked more consistently, or they just let us know that it doesn't work consistently, and it really depends on the source, or depends on the person, or where you're at, like, just more info would have been nice. What else? So, Sookie was a terrible friend, and a terrible employee, if we're being honest. Like, I get that a lot was happening in her life, but she was such a bad friend to Tara, and to Lafayette, and of course to Sam. Well, Sam was, she could be terrible to him because I didn't like him. But she was a bad employee because she would just never work, I guess. And yeah, a lot of the time is because she was like in danger or like saving people. But she just was really annoying at times and terrible to Tara. Like, never really, she was just so all up in her own drama, which, again, there's a lot of drama. And I get that sometimes you get wrapped up in yourself. But she, like, never had time for Tara. And yet Tara still tried to save her life because she's an idiot. And honestly, they did Tara so dirty. Like, I hated her character because she was super annoying, but it was because they constantly had her be the absolute worst. Like, there was no, I don't, like, you kind of understood sometimes her reactions to Sookie, because, you kind of get that Sookie's an idiot, or that, Vamps didn't have the best, the best reputation at that point, and then she got to know some of them. She's like, yeah, they're pretty messed up. But when you pair her against Sookie, who's like the main protagonist, it makes you want to align with Sookie and not with Tara. So then I feel like they were constantly setting her up for failure, because there was never really any kind of attempt to meet Tara halfway. It was always just Sookie's going to do what she's going to do, and who cares about anybody else? And then Tara's going to be an idiot and constantly go off and get mixed up with things that she doesn't understand because she's so freaking thick-headed or bull-headed or whatever you want to say. And she just was so stupid all the time. Like, she kept getting mixed up with these other things, but thinking that she knows best. And it was just, it was exhausting to watch. But I also, I hated every single storyline she was in. Like, she was just constantly picking the wrong side. Like with the Maenad, with the witch circle, the coven circle, or whatever. I hated her mother, which I think you're supposed to anyway. And I hated that she, became part of, all of these wrong sides. And she was kind of better as a vampire when she was only reacting, like, with Pam, when they were pairing them up. But even then, she was still kind of annoying. Like, she just had this attitude that I hated. Like, that one scene when they're in the bar, and she says something like, they're not going to come into my house or something, and Pam's like, this isn't your freaking house, you work here. And it was like, yeah, why do you think you own everything? It was really annoying. Like, she was so quick to be angry at everyone, and I know that they tried to explain it with, she had that demon, and then she got exorcised, and it wasn't even really real, but then she still was just angry all the time at everyone, and it was really annoying. Like, she never got a better character arc. They never had her deal with her, her childhood trauma, basically. They never really wrapped it up until, I guess, they killed her. Then they kind of wrapped that up by having her show her mom that she was about to murder her dad, but she felt bad because she didn't do it, and then maybe she felt guilty, and that's why she was mad all the time. But it was like, okay, well, this is too little too late. Yeah, I feel really bad because Tara could have been a great character. She could have been a great best friend, and yet they ruined her character. And that kind of brings me to Sam, because I hated him too, but he also kind of had that same, like, quick to judgment attitude that Tara did, and he also could have been a great, like, character to help support Sookie, in writing, and yet he was garbage. I hated how he felt, like, entitled to Sookie. Like, that whole I want to date you and whatever thing was super duper creepy. I hated that they tried to make it happen, and I hate even more that this is a book spoiler, but I read that they end up together, and I heard that they're, like, Sam's way different in the books, but, like, no. Hands down, no. Sam was a friggin' creep, for sure. And also, what the heck was up with him, like, immediately falling in love with another woman the second his shifter girlfriend died? Like, relationships move so quickly in this show. Obviously, Sookie goes through a million of them, but even that was insanely quick. It was literally, I think, the next episode or 2 episodes later after she dies, they're on the run still, and somehow he has time to fall in love with some other lady, and, like, it's not even like, he's just moving on and filling a void because he's, everyone processes grief differently, but he literally says he loves her, like, a couple episodes later. Ugh, I hated it. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I still love True Blood. And was it mainly for Eric? Who's to say? Yes. But it was still a good show, It was different. I don't know. There's kind of two ways to go vampire here, and one is, kind of the Buffy way, where it's just they're, these creature things and they feed and blah 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 blah. And then there's like the True Blood Anne Rice kind of way, I guess, where like it's all very sexual and weird. And this one is definitely that latter one, obviously, because I said it was part like True Blood way. So if you're into that kind of vampire stuff, then True Blood's probably your show. And if you haven't watched it, I don't know why you're listening to this episode, so I don't know why we're here. Yeah. I'd still rewatch it, but probably just some clips of Eric when he's got no memory. And there you have it. Those are my thoughts on True Blood. Thank you so much for joining me. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr at Mixed Media Reviews Podcast. Please leave me a comment to let me know if you agreed, disagreed, or if you have any suggestions. You can also find me anywhere you find your podcasts. Probably. Though using Spotify would be very helpful. Please join me next week where I'm going to be talking about a movie. What movie will it be? That's a great question. Let's go with the new Netflix movie that's a rom-com, sorta. Players. Let's do it. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye!